Good afternoon. Welcome to the committee meeting for the Environmental Services Department. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Is there any pecuniary interest? None. I have none. We have no delegation. Our prior meeting minutes were circulated at our last council meeting and approved. Ongoing tasks from the Environmental Services Department. You want to take that, Jay?
There's just a few items on there. The water wastewater bylaw review, guidelines for meter replacement is an issue. The digester project, is that covered in your report?
It's in the review.
It's not to be in the report, yeah. The bylaws obviously, it's an ongoing. Trying to get the time for Jim and I to be able to sit down and just start working on a whole new bylaw. Trying to cut and paste, we're looking at trying to pull stuff out of other municipal bylaws and stuff out of our own, so it's gonna be a significant amount of work to get that done, but
And then there was a question, Jay, at the last meeting about timeline for delivery of parts for the sludge recirculation pump.
yeah, so that, I spoke to Namstro yesterday, actually. And that they're having a hard time getting the supplier to locate parts, so. Unfortunately, we may be looking at full replacement. Which would be the 33,000 instead of 13. So we do have, it's in my report, we've asked, a local company as well to come and have a look and see if they can maybe give us some better answers and still do the rebuild option. They're supposed to be setting up a date over the next week or two to come and look at that, so. Hopefully by the end of this month, I'll know for sure whether or not we can get parts for it, or we're gonna have to do a full replacement.
That's everything on that list.
Okay. Move on to the health and safety inspection sheets. Everything looked good on that this time.
There was just the one comment about the UV outfall area.
Yeah, so all the remaining items with plant health and safety issues and stuff, they're all ongoing. The only new item was, there was some concerns about the potential for falling in both the aeration, all the tanks, when you walk around the grounds, and then if you're near the outfall, it's quite a low wall. That's been discussed in the past, but it's been brought up now, so we're gonna have to address it formally. Basically, the only option is to get railings put out, so I have asked one of our contractors to come in and do a budgetary price on putting some form of railing all the way around. It's probably gonna be significant in the dollar value. It's a lot of railing. But I'll get that number. And we'll have to go from there.
To receive and file the health and safety sheet. The monthly report, I believe, is next on our new business.
We can start off with the update for the digester project. So Jim and myself met with Matt and MIG at MIG's office to discuss the project. They were going to get us some confirmation on pricing for the additional work that MIG suggested to be done on the digester lids to replace all the pipes. I'll replace 2 of the pipes and eliminate a couple of the pipes that are on top of the digester in the doghouse. We're still waiting for that. I spoke to Matt yesterday, they called me, I had a long conversation with them. Regarding both trying to get this work scheduled as well as working on the second digester. I gave them contacts for a couple of companies to get rid of sludge and do the cleanup. And then that company is looking for some analysis on the sludge and stuff, so we're working on getting those numbers to that company for that. So they are working on it, but we have still, to the best of my own, I haven't received the final cost for the primary one. They did tell me yesterday that they had sent an email to MIG, so I'm thinking we should get something this week. So it is moving forward, just it's moving slower than we'd like to see, but it is moving forward. And then there is still the, concerns of whether or not they'll be able to complete both digesters by the deadline, and whether or not that's gonna affect any, potential grant money. So, we don't have answers to how it'll affect it or if it will, but, we do have those concerns.
Are there potentially extensions on any of these grants? Like,
I would say no. Like the one grant was originally supposed to expire. The work has to be done by September of 23, I think originally September 21.
Yeah.
They provided extensions because of COVID.
Yeah.
Does not sound like they're planning on doing it further extensions. And then the other grant program is one of these ones where you're allowed to save up for a few years. So that money needs to be spent. I think we can probably apply it to a different project if we have to. So, I mean, we could potentially apply it, say, to the arena roof, and then just take the money that was put aside for the arena roof and put towards the project, shuffling the deck a little bit to make proper use of the funds and make sure we do it on time. So we may end up having to just reallocate the grant to the project. But the federal grant, the CWWF, Canadian wastewater, clean Canadian wastewater fund, I think it is. Anyway, that one, there won't be an extension.
So regarding this project, like, are we doing everything we can to encourage the completion date? Like, are there penalties in our agreement with the supplier? Are there legal recourse we can take? If we lose a grant, someone should be accountable for that.
So there's no penalties. There were no penalties written into the contract originally. As far as legal recourse, it's something we've talked about. Going further than that in an open session, but it's a possibility. And both the engineer and the contractor are aware of these grant implications.
Okay.
They know the dates, they know the deadlines, they have all the information we could possibly give them. And Jay and I, this meeting we had with them was probably almost 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And here we are still waiting for an answer. Like, they were gonna get back to us with they have a rough idea of the cost of what they think needs to be done. But they were gonna get back to us with something on paper outlining kind of upset limits somewhat, and 2 weeks later, we don't have it yet.
And we rattle their cage on this, like,
Yeah.
like versus
Yeah.
just wait till they finally, we called them and said, hello.
Emails and since 2018, we've been
But I mean,
calls and
in
emails.
this last 2 weeks, like,
Oh, yeah, I've sent a couple.
wow,
Like I said, I spoke to him yesterday on the days off, trying to get him to, I'm supplying them with possible contractors
right,
to speed things up so they can, I've been pushing to try to get them working on the second digester.
Yeah.
At least at the fan in place. At this point, they never had anything, they've been reminded multiple times that, hey, you still have the second one to do. It's gonna be more difficult to clean out because we don't have the site access. I've been handing them information, contacts. reminders that, hey, you need to get thinking about what you're gonna do for the second one. Not much more we can do.
Yeah, short of doing it yourself, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Challenges, work management, right now we have the 3 full-time employees, and the 1 full employee that's on leave. We do still have an opening for the replacement for the temporary employee from the person that's on leave. Training, all the staff, everyone's achieved all, or working to achieve all their hours, to get their certification or gain higher certification, to the max that's achievable for our facilities. Myself and the other staff all been registered, for multiple courses and remote learning, as well as in-person training courses this year. We've been trying to play catch up with COVID. Everybody in the department was falling behind on their training because most of the training got canceled. It was limited. And as far as health and safety training, we just continue to follow the matrix provided by the health and safety coordinator. Certifications, all the staff are working with the needed certification, and they're working to get hired, if possible, for each individual. The plant, all the maintenance, we're continuing to keep a track through the mesh work order system. All the plant and remote facilities, all the routine maintenance, and general housekeeping is being done on a scheduled basis that we have scheduled in mesh. And, anything that does come up gets recorded in the mesh or would be brought forward to committee. Sludgery, the circulation pump, we talked about that. We're just trying to get verification if we can get replacement parts. It's, again, it's 30-year-old equipment. It's appearing to be quite difficult to find replacement parts. The bearings and stuff for it, that's always, again, it's the wear plates and the impellers. And they just can't get confirmation from the manufacturer if that's gonna be available. So, I guess hopefully I can get some answers, or maybe the other contractors from around town can find something. The admin building, this is ongoing with the basement water issues, mold issues, access to egress issues. I had a report to give to Jim. I'll be getting it to him hopefully next week. And hopefully we can schedule another building committee meeting shortly thereafter to review all that. And then try to move forward with our options with that building. The office or my office in the plant, the ceiling again is leaking. Last few heavy rains, with that pails out, collecting water. The roof has been temporary fixed. I think it's 3 times over the last few years, trying to keep the leak at bay. It's basically trying to minimize the expenses until there's a decision, final decision made on the direction that we're going to go with the new building. Exterior, down them. And all the exterior maintenance is being completed and tracked through mesh. Any major or known deficiencies are either being identified in this year's capital budget, or they'll be added to next year's budget as they come up. We do have an RFP that was out for the services of a professional engineers firm to review the village capacities of the wastewater and stormwater systems. That closed on Thursday, and I believe Jim received 3 packages that will need to be reviewed and looked at.
What do you think those?
You're off.
I'm on training for the rest of the week.
Yeah. I'll open them and start to evaluate them this week. We have to get a two-step process. So we do like a technical evaluation first, and then if they meet the threshold, we look at the price. So I believe, like next Friday or something that we're supposed to award the contract price.
And I don't know if it's possible to take copies. I can take copies and leave them along the way too, so. Of the technical part of it. I can put it in the email and phone calls.
Yeah, probably leave it in here,
Sorry, inspections, we haven't had any formal inspections from any agencies or anything. To report on, the wastewater infrastructure, all the remote acts, or assets are in good operational condition to the best of their knowledge, with weekly station checks and, the regular maintenance being done. Any known or planned repairs and upgrades that aren't already budgeted for would be tracked and brought forward on future capital budgets, unless it's an emergency, and therefore we would bring it to the committee and council as an emergency need. And we base that on the situation at the time. Drinking water infrastructure, again, all assets are currently in working condition. We do have the St. Clair Street project. I'm not aware of any meetings that have been held since the presentation was made to council. So I really can't give you updates on where we're at. I did ask at that presentation that MIG supplied me with the underground drawings that David done when he was at MIG. They asked me if I could look, I went through my email, I can't find them. We were provided paper copies at one time. I still haven't received any actual digital copies of the drawings for us to start reviewing. But we do need to get those eventually, so we can just kind of go over it and make sure everything's in there. There's questions about fire hydrants. You know, the fire department, I had them out a few years ago, and we actually painted the curves exactly where they want all new hydrants installed, et cetera. And Meg was out documented all the locations. But since Dave's moved on, I can't think of the lady's name. Lydia, she didn't have access to his files, so she would have to work with Devin to try to make sure that it all been updated on the drawings. So we do need to get that eventually. Like I said, I'm not sure how far we are along since that presentation.
They told us that they'd be going to tender in about a month, so
So
from now.
they definitely need to get the drawings in so we can review them again.
I'll follow up with her.
If I may have a question of this, probably more to Jim, but, should we be communicating with the residents along there? Just, I know we have done communication, but primarily the fact of the replacement of water services, and then we start giving consideration to, like, the fact that we are going to tender, St. Clair Street will be rebuilt, and that we're encouraging people to upgrade their water service and clarify that it will be at their expense, and that this is the time to do it. I think some people can either save up the money or make the decision to, you know, I know we're going to provide some sort of a program. Some people may just want to pay for it themselves, but I think there might be some uncertainty about who's doing the water thing. Just a simple communication to those residents and just keep the information flowing to them. You know, we did the open house, we did the other things, and we're almost to tender. So even something as simple as even outlining that we have made some adjustments since the open house, right? Maybe outline some of the changes we've made, and just so that they're in the loop on it. I think it just would be good as far as keeping that dialogue going with them.
I guess the question I would have to that is, as far as the services, to the best of my knowledge, was never really put in concrete how we were gonna deal with.
No, there has not really been, there have been a couple of options talked about whether we're going to give like a loan, a low interest or interest-free loan, or there was a few options discussed on how those services would get paid, but there has been no concrete.
I'm just asking because for us to get a, like, put our notification or information, we're gonna be asked.
I think we can put something together that just so they're aware, there's gonna be a cost there. I think Lydia told us $3,000 to $4,000 per home was the cost, that, it's a rough cost. I mean, every home's gonna be a little bit different, but that was the range that she had. So people can start to think about that, if they want to pay it up front, or if they.
I'd be leery to put that in the letter. But if you don't, they're gonna call. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather keep this a high level, sort of somewhat generic, that the council are working on a plan to help residents that need help with it. Cost is to be determined. Because Lydia said they were gonna put it in the scope of the tender, that the contractor could do the work, I recall, for this water line services.
Yeah, that was definitely.
Yeah, that was the direction we gave her, yeah.
I'll reach out to her and, see where it's at, and,
I don't wanna, if people are talking, I just don't wanna give any misinformation about, there was talk about, payment plans and tax, putting stuff on that. I wanna make sure that we give the accurate information if we're talking to people as well.
So should we bring it forward to council in 2
Yeah,
weeks
yeah.
and come up with a decision on how we're gonna fund it? Because we
Yeah.
did talk about zero interest, we talked about prime, we talked about how many years. So maybe we can get a staff recommendation, and then we can just have it in place and then send the letter out
yeah.
after next Tuesday. You can draft it all up, and then we make our decision.
Is there potential to add it to water bills too over an extended period of time, or is that too much? What do you think?
I think the problem with that is, especially since we don't do our own water bills anymore, I think it would be, I think, off the top of my head, the recommendation that I think makes most sense is for it to be a loan from the village, whether it be low interest or no interest, is a political decision. I think you want to keep that separate from the water bill and just, we keep it in-house.
Yep.
Like we'll borrow the money from our emergency reserve and then repay it as the money comes back in over the years, put it back into the reserve, so we're not really costing ourselves a whole lot.
Yeah.
And,
It's a small group. If we put on the water bill, it goes to 1,000 people. If we deliver it to their homes, it's what, 100
yeah,
tops,
yeah.
not even that.
About half that.
Yeah.
So then you just, the treasurer does an invoice each year, and if they don't pay it within 30 or 60 days or whatever, you go on your taxes.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it'd be cleaner to just keep it in house.
So do we need a recommendation?
I know, that's okay, I think. Directions understood, prepare a report and bring it into the next council meeting.
Inspections, audits, and reports. So I've submitted all the wastewater, annual reports to the MOE that are required. They were forwarded to Jim for distribution. There's really nothing further that has to be done with those. DWQMS, we had our external audit done. And it was completed by SAI Global again. We had a meeting with the water department, all the opportunities for improvement. We had one minor non-conformance, which were reviewed. We discussed it all the corrections and changes that we made that we feel we want to do, and that's being submitted to the auditor this week. Basically, the one minor non-conformance was we had discussed it, but it wasn't documented in a way that the auditor was happy for cyber threats to the the water system. Being that we're pipes in the ground only, we have zero internet connection to our water system. There's zero threat as far as cybersecurity. Billing would be the one thing that could be an issue. But again, that's, you know, it doesn't affect people's safety in any way, shape or form, so it would be a financial, you know, burden. Again, everything's metered, so even if we did lose our records, it would be a matter of having staff go and do, you know, meter reads on every meter we have in the village, and we would be able to pass billing and catch up. So we've changed the operational plan to reference it, and it's all documented now. Like I said, I'll get the report back from the auditor probably in 2 weeks, and we should be good to go, as far as that minor non-conformance.
So, this is Paul's question, but DWQMS, what's that stand for? It's Drinking Water Quality
Management System.
Management System.
It's,
Yeah,
Building up.
we get so many
Yeah, I know.
acronyms.
it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Stormwater infrastructure, so. This is a new item, so diesel pump one. When we did the station checks on Tuesday, April the 4th, the operator found a large volume of engine oil on the floor. She contacted me and I instructed them to make sure that the diesel was isolated and shut down, so it couldn't be restarted. We went and inspected it. We found an oil filter housing gasket had blown out, which basically caused all the oil to leak out onto the floor. We called around, found parts. Nobody could source actual original Detroit diesel parts and just them in stock. So with a bunch of work and running around, I found alternate solutions in town. Got it all put back together and operating. It's run a few times and we've been checking it on a regular basis to make sure that it doesn't have any other issues. We did avoid a catastrophic failure. If that diesel had started again, there was zero oil left in it. So if it would have fired up again or been called for, if we had another rain in that period, we'd be down one diesel.
So it would have run with no oil pressure?
Yeah.
There was no fail safe or no, because it's
Unfortunately,
so old, right?
So old, there's no, like all the newer stuff has all the safety. This one's so old, it wouldn't fire it up.
Just tell me to start, I'll start. I'll
Exactly.
do everything I can.
It'll run till it won't run, so.
Yeah,
We did get lucky. I was nervous because I didn't know at the time whether it leaked all the oil, but obviously it was leaking and we went back into trending and we found like the last time it ran was just before the rain, so we were lucky that the rain let up. And that was the last time that it happened, but it has ran and it's running good, so trying to track down some same replacement parts that are needed for the other one. I figure if the one went, the other one's probably not much better. And that's just where I want to stress the importance of, we've been talking over the budgets about doing upgrades at the station. And it's just going to show that, you know, when parts are needed, they're just not off the shelf, we can't get them. You know, it could have been a lot worse too. We could have been doing a major overhaul, especially now with the second diesel already has issues with the pressurizing the cooling system, which we're trying to get the options and pricing from the manufacturers to replace these diesels, or possibly look at doing a complete revamp, but I still haven't got it. I did get one quote on replacing these two diesels. Unfortunately, they don't have the ability to price out all the ductwork, so now I have to get another tin company and price out all the ductwork that's going to be required in the building itself for ventilation issues. So I might even have to have an engineer involved to look at that. So The problem with that is there's gonna be costs. I know we don't have a budget in the storage station for that sort of work, so. I'm still working on it, but hopefully we can find some answers. The main problem right now is none of the suppliers have heat exchanger options. They all want to go to a rad system with ventilation, which isn't what we have right now, so. We're trying to find some kind of an option. And then, you know, and I skipped over the catch basins, that's just continual. We have a list of catch basins. There's a few that are marked with pylons in the village that are gonna have to be repaired. Now that the weather's turning, we'll be able to get at those and it's just the annual work that gets done every year. Health and safety, we discussed this briefly on health and safety. There's the joint health and safety committee. We did they did the walkthroughs and they identified the hazard at the plant with falling over the tank sides and the effluent channel. Again, I've asked contractors to come. They're scheduling time to come out and have a look at that and give me some budgetary quotes to eliminate that hazard. Federal Bridge Corporation, they continue to have all their fencing on the property where the concrete was falling and they have their catch nets up. Other than that, I don't know of any further updates from them or I haven't received anything further from the health and safety coordinator as far as correspondence. I know they're supposed to be doing their regular checks on the site. They haven't been coming on site to do it. What they've been doing is walking on their side of the fence, just kind of looking as instead of coming on and walking in the actual area itself, so. And then everything else on the health and safety walkthroughs, they've all been ongoing issues that we've discussed. There's no security issues at the plant, and there's no community feedback or events to discuss. Capital budgets, we gave Jim a list of where we're at with all the capital projects and on their progress, so. And that was definitely forwarded on.
Yep. We have it in
Oh, it's
the
on.
package coming up, yeah. Okay, any questions about the report? Very good. Move to receive and file that committee report. Thank you, Jay, very thorough. Scary. Next item on new business is our capital project update.
So we just circulate that to each committee, if you have any, just so you know where we're at with the different projects.
Yeah.
What's finished, what's ongoing, what's proposed to be done later on. And if you have any questions after the period, you can ask us at any time. You can always refer back to it to see, you know, if somebody asks you where you are on a particular project, you can refer back.
And that's just for our information purposes.
Yep.
We don't need to receive and file that.
You can, whatever your, it should be received and filed.
Okay. Great. Is there any other new business?
The only thing that I did miss in putting in the report, we did have a meeting, there's myself, Laws, some of the city of Sarnia, people in their Blue Water Power and the county. We all met at the Federal Bridge building. They're looking at signing an agreement with the county, for sharing the GIS and mapping information. And then once the county agreement's done, we want to try to do the same with the village and Blue Water Power Laws. So we all have access to each other's mapping and drawings. Just, there's so much stuff that has been done over the years and nobody really has all the updates. We basically want to try to make it so everybody has access to know where connections are, who has what. There's a lot of questions on ownership of different assets, including certain water lines, storm drains, even some roads, some property, like when it comes to, couple different areas in the village where there's questions on ownership of road areas, so, I just want to let you know, they're working on that with the county, and, once they get the county one finalized, then we'll meet again, and they're gonna present something to the village for, an agreement in that matter.
Does have one new business thing, the stormwater rates on the road, who's responsible for those? Your department, Public Works, is it?
When I started, it was Public Works. Typically, most municipalities, it's a Public Works, it's a roads. They're there to drain the road. I've been taking care of it for the last few years. We do have, actually, there's a budget line in my storm station budget. And then Public Works they also have a budget line in there. Over the years, basically, once if we run out of money, we just kind of work back and forth, but.
The part I'm looking at is, after those heavy rains we had, a number of them had like a ton of debris on top of them. So who's responsible for
That's
driving by and scooping that up?
That's always been Public to do and typically, even, I know there's been a few times when they've called for heavy rains. In the past, they would have them go out ahead of time.
Yeah.
To make sure they're clear.
So I noticed there's a few in around my house that are just plugged right up right now, because the rains brought all the debris from all over to there. And then I can only suspect we're gonna get more spring rain, so maybe we can ask the guys to go just do it. They even part of their patrol, like just stopping. Either kick it out of the way up on the boulevard or scoop it up and throw it back to the truck.
I know they've done some of that.
I've always seen the students do that too, and I know we don't have our students.
Yeah.
They would typically go out on a regular basis.
Yeah, and they'll be here soon, so maybe that can be one of their first tasks.
Just a comment on that, I've got one right in front of my house and I make sure it's clear myself, so residents have a responsibility here as well, because it will flood back up into your own property if you don't look after it. So we can't leave everything for Public Works or whatever, like it takes a minute to do it.
No, we had to do, the last heavy rain, we did the ones that were in front of the plant even, just, and the road. Couldn't get rid of it, there's so much, a lot of it was pine needles off the trees in front of the plant, just.
And then I done it while walking, I'll just kick it up onto the boulevard, at least it's not on the roadway, it'll probably wash back there eventually, but at least it's not blocking.
Okay, moving on to financial statements. Any comments on the financials?
No, I don't.
See anything stood out and move to receive and file that? Okay. That's it. Call for adjournment.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.